Being 6:01, I'd like to call the November 14th meeting of the Capital Planning Committee to order. I'd like to introduce the Capital Planning Committee members for those that may be watching at home for the first time. So just starting to my left, if you're facing me, David Goslin from the Finance Committee, David Braslow from the Board of Library Trustees, Christopher LaValle, citizen member, Dennis King from the School Committee, Joe Tierney, another citizen member, and also Darlene Lucier, town accountant, is with us, as well as town manager Paul Cohen. Our mission, for those that may not have watched these meetings before, is we review all of the capital projects and needs for the coming fiscal year, for fiscal year 26, and we assist the town manager by making a recommendation and helping the town manager develop a capital budget for the coming fiscal year, as well as an update for a 5-year capital plan that we do each year. So that being said, tonight we'll be following the posted agenda, and the first hearing is from Municipal Technology, and with us this evening is Ted Luter, our IT director, and Ted's going to be discussing project number 1.
Good evening, everyone. It's not a very exciting project. I'm just looking for money to refresh our firewalls. It's the last piece in a multi-year project to refresh the entire network. We have done the edge switches a few years ago. We're currently, this fiscal year, working on the core switches and Wi-Fi, and upgrading the firewalls will make us our network be up to date, all refreshed. Typical stuff you do in IT. Again, not really exciting. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes.
How'd you come up with 100,000?
I contacted my consultant and asked him how much it would cost to upgrade the firewalls, and that was the number he gave me.
Is it just one consultant? I mean, do we bid this at all? Just goes to one person? How does it work?
The consultant that we use, we buy from the state contract. The consultant we use is a consultant we've used for years. And he's the one that has put all the policies in for our network. He's been our consultant since we switched to this network, I'd say 8 to 10 years ago. Yeah.
So with the state bid list, had that anything over 50,000, that eliminates the need to
Correct.
You kind of know you're getting, because it's a cooperative price for other towns and cities and towns and things like that. So
it's the price that you the state bid list allows you to buy without having to go out to bid, because it's vetted by the state. That's how we do it.
How many firewall devices are there?
We have two that run in a pair, so it gives us redundancy. It gets to we're at the point where it costs more to maintain the firewalls than to refresh the firewalls. So if we weren't given the money to do these fires, we would pay another maintenance fee, which would end up costing us more money than if we just replaced the firewalls. Over like a 3-year period, it saves us money.
Yeah. How old are they?
6. We would be starting our 7th year if we don't replace these firewalls.
And what's the manufacturer's end of life?
It's probably longer than that. I don't know what the end of life is. Okay. The reason we're coming to you is because it saves, the cost is, it doesn't make sense to keep paying the maintenance fees because they go up as the equipment gets older.
And would you recycle these, or would you keep them as spares?
We probably would hold on to them for some period of time and then recycle them. We have had the need for other firewalls in town, but now that we've moved to a lot of cloud services, the need for more firewalls than just the two has greatly decreased. So, you know, it's a good idea to keep them because you never know. We do some work with the Housing Authority, and sometimes there could be a need for older equipment that we can recycle for that kind of purpose.
All right, any other questions for Ted? No?
All right.
Thank you, Ted.
Have a good night.
And next on our agenda, we have our Elder Services Director, Debbie Siriani, here.
John, can I ask a
Yes.
question before you go on?
Sure.
I mean, why aren't we asking for digitization and records for this capital year?
That was something I consulted with our town clerk, and because of the funding from other sources this year, like at the last town meeting, there was funding for digitization of records that was approved from free cash. So they felt with the funding that they have right now, they were going to be pretty busy trying to get that project going. So that's why they did not submit a capital request. But I did talk with her this year about that.
Thanks.
Hi, Debbie. Good evening. So
Hi,
Debbie's
how are you, everyone?
project number 2 on your project detail sheets.
This is a part 2 of a deferred project from last year. We had the replacement of the flooring for the main hallway and the hall, and it was split into 2, and we got the main hallway funded for this year. And this is the second part of the project for the main hall, so where the dining area. And so it is original flooring. It's about 37 years old now. And we've done various things to try to replace the worst parts and do little patchwork. And when we do it, the remaining older floor around it cracks even worse, and so we can't patch it. So we started putting rugs over all the holes, but then we can't get it properly cleaned either because when we would usually strip it and clean it and get it waxed twice a year, but we can't do that anymore because the substances they use and the water gets under all the other old floor and bubbles it up and cracks it even worse. So we wash it, of course, but we can't properly care for the floor, and it is a safety issue. There are a lot of holes and bubbles and cracks and rugs. So we're hoping to get the rest of it fixed and funded this year.
Did part 1 get completed yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, I just didn't know if they ran into any problems, unexpected problems doing that part.
No. The other part is actually covered in a rug,
Right.
which we replaced with throw rugs and like a runner that the Friends had funded years ago. And then that had all kinds of bubbles and problems and tripping hazards. And so we're ready to get rid of that too and just pull it up and make it a very easily maintained and cleaned surface.
The idea when that's going to get done, or?
I think they said in the coming, gosh, I'm not sure.
Just wondered.
Before June, so.
And what's the source of the cost estimate for the 170,000?
So this year is just a 10% increase from last year on the advice of Christine Clancy. And last year, we got it we quoted out from a local company that we've used before for smaller projects. And then once if it's funded this year, we still do need to go out for 3 different quotes for the actual awarding of that project. So it's usually.
But the
we get-
sourcing is from Christine.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, Debbie worked with Director Clancy on this. I happen to be involved in that email and all that, so thank you for doing that.
A pleasure as always.
Any
Great.
other questions for Debbie at all? No? Right,
Thank you
Thank you,
very
Debbie.
much. Thank you. Have a good night.
thank you, you too. Next on the agenda, we have our Library Director, Leslie Kimball, and you'll note that there are 3 projects numbered 3, 4, and 5. I believe Leslie's going to discuss project number 4 And then next week, we'll be discussing municipal and school facilities. And at that time, Director Clancy and Leslie will get a little more into the facilities projects. Well, good evening, Leslie.
Good evening. Thanks, everybody, for the time. Glad to be here. So we are looking to have some funding to basically refresh, like Ted said, replace the technology that we use throughout the library, both on-site and off-site. This is something that goes back many years. We run our replacement of our technology, hardware and software on about a 5-year cycle. So, we look at the kind of recommended life for a lot of things. Computers is maybe 3 to 5 years. We look at a 4 to 6 year lifespan. And we use this cycle as a way to, some of the machines we're using now will get passed down. It's like a family with a lot of cousins. You get all these hand-me-downs. So what we try to do is we replace the, most critical things, the newest things, very much public use computers and staff computing, as well as the machines that run, for example, our circulation system and those mission-critical kinds of things. And then as we get down to the search computers and things that are only doing 1 or 2 functions, we're able to use those ones that have gotten a little older to replace those. So we would be phasing out things that are more like 8 or 9 years old, and replacing those with some things that are more like the 6 years old, and moving everything down the line in that way. Based on some of the questions that had come up before, we do also use the state contract in order to get quotes and purchase equipment. So we're using the amounts that we've been able to get from them, and then we would get more specific when we actually were entering into purchasing. So we're asking for the first year of funding for this, and that would allow us to do about half of what we need to get done. Again, we'd be prioritizing those public use computers, as well as staff computers, as well as some other network hardware that we need to update and replace, and then also software. We are moving to Microsoft Azure cloud services on the recommendation of the town and the requirements for the town's liability insurance. So that has a certain amount of costs involved with it as well. So, I can remember earlier on in my career needing to explain why we needed computers in libraries when we would ask for funding. I think we all know how essential they are to us, and certainly something that we need simply to be able to operate. And this cycle has worked very well over the years.
Any questions for Leslie at all? Thank you.
So
I just have a question. Is there any use for the equipment that you may have elsewhere in town, whether it be the senior center or anywhere else, or is this totally defunct, some of the equipment that you have?
Well, it does depend. We certainly have some things, that just for whatever reason aren't going to be able to be used. But in the past, we have been able to sometimes, the schools have been able to use some items, especially if there are clubs or like Girls Who Code clubs can use those kinds of things. Our Fix-It clinic, actually, it's a great way for people to learn how to fix things when we have older things. We have a relationship with the jail, and sometimes they can use devices and things that we're able to pass along. So we certainly reach out to that community to see who might be able to use things that are in good enough condition that we're passing along.
Great.
Useful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And approximately the 60,000 would get you how many computers?
So the 60, we have 110 things that we need to update and pass down and things like that. So the 60,000, we would be looking to do roughly, it's about 50 actual, it's a combination of the station with its peripherals, with its software upgrades, and then be able to do about that same amount the following year.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, any other questions at all for Leslie? All right, great. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
for the presentation. And next on the agenda, we have our Center for the Arts Director, Lauren Cochran, with us this evening. And their project is number 6 in your packets. Good evening, Lauren. I have those pictures when you want to show
Oh,
them.
good.
They're
Oh,
just a
good,
separate
great, thank
file.
you.
Yeah.
So basically, the Chelmsford Center for the Arts has been very busy in the last year and a half since I became the executive director. And the good news is we got a grant, which was great. So we have brand-new shutters that are historically accurate. We have a washer and dryer now. Rentals have increased a lot. As a matter of fact, we just booked about 3 or 4 weddings to be held in the auditorium. So the auditorium is in dire need of at least the floor. So we've asked for up to $50,000 for renovation with fresh paint and sort of to make it a little darker in color, but mostly we could use about $20,000 to renovate the floor. I don't know how old the floor is, but John, if you want to show those
Sure.
pictures.
Let me just
It gets a
minimize
lot
this.
of use and abuse now. And it just needs to be buffed. This floor could be as old as 1930. My husband, who's an architect, thinks it's oak, but he thinks it'll do okay if we just get it lightly sanded and buffed instead of replacing it. But I think we'd have to investigate that. His approximation would be about $20,000 to $25,000 to redo the floor. So you can see that the floor has sort of been weathered and worn and beat up a lot. So I would like to just start by saying that would be a great plus on it. And then the rest would be sort of cosmetic. Some of the chandeliers have to be pulled up because they need to be cleaned desperately, but they also, the chains, some are up higher than others, and we want them to have all on the same level. So it's really cosmetic to make it look nice, and the building's pretty solid still, but it was more for that. So any questions?
So the total request is 50,000?
Up to 50,000. I
Which
mean,
includes 20 for the
20 and then about
floor.
20 for paint and the chandelier fixing.
And where did you get your numbers from?
Well, my husband's an architect, so I do talk to him about it, and he said, well, flooring's going to be about 20,000, and he's always doing that kind of, estimating in his head. But I can get more specifics. I did have a flooring person come in June, but he never got back to me with bids, so that wasn't any good yet. So, but it'd probably be less than that. I believe the numbers would come in a little less than that.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Lauren? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
And then next on our agenda, we have our Police Chief, Colin Spence, here to explain the Police Department capital request, and this is project number 7. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me here. It's great to see everybody, as always. This is for the repaving and resurfacing of our back parking lot. As you can see from the picture that was provided, the parking lot is starting to get into disrepair, and that is mainly because of the usage. It's almost 20 years old, actually a little over 20 years old, and it is now also used by the fire department, DPW. Everybody uses the gas pumps, so that creates more of wear and tear on the resurfacing on the pavement. Now, I got the cost estimate. I work with the DPW director and her staff, and that's based on this fall's pricing. And they had a 20% contingency to account for any potential changes in the pricing. We do need to have some work done on one of our garages. As you pull into the garage, our new command van cannot get fully into the garage properly with the generator attached to the back, so it has to be regraded. So that is part of this project also. In speaking with the DPW director, she did say that this is one of the priorities with the Adams Library parking lot, and if we do both of them at the same time, there'll be approximately a $50,000 savings in doing them at the same time. So the request is for $430,000, and I am here to answer any questions you may have.
I noticed on the project sheet, Chief, it said that granite curbing will be installed around the gas tanks.
Yes,
That's
that's
good for
correct.
durability and,
Yeah, we're actually working on the gas tanks also, as far as safety reasons. The curbing there is just not sufficient.
You mentioned the generator. What was the point
So on the
there?
back of the command van, the new command van, there's a basket that houses the generator, gas generator. And when you have the basket attached, it bottoms out pulling out of the back garage. So we're having and it barely, the command van barely clears it. It's a grading issue. As many of you probably know, the garage that we utilize now used to be the community television garage. So it was never really made for this purpose. It's been repurposed for our usage.
So is the generator at risk in any way?
No, what we're going to do now, so we can utilize the command van, is we're just going to take that basket off until this project is done. And then if we need an emergency, we'll just carry it over and put it on the back. So,
This may be a question for Director Clancy next week when she talks about the other project, but you mentioned doing this in conjunction with the paving at the library.
yes.
Are the estimates that are in the capital plan reflective of the $50,000 in savings? Or are the projects priced individually now and that savings would result from combining the two projects together?
I believe they're priced individually. And if both are approved, then obviously there would be a cost savings doing them both at the same time.
we can definitely ask her for some, to assist with that at the next meeting, for sure.
Yeah, I spoke with her last week regarding it, and these are the most current
Yeah.
figures.
Great. All right, any other questions for the chief? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Have a great night.
You too. And then next on the agenda, we have Fire Chief Gary Ryan here to explain the fire department capital needs. And the fire department project is number, let's see if we can. Number
Good evening,
8.
Mr. Chairman, board members. I hope everybody's well. I come before you requesting the replacement of our command vehicle, which is designated as Fire 3 in the department. Fire 3 is a 2016 Ford Expedition. And this vehicle serves a critical role in the department because it's a frontline response vehicle used by the officer in charge, the OIC. But beyond, and it's coming up to its 10-year, that vehicle gets replaced on the 10-year cycle. But beyond its primary response as a response vehicle, that vehicle also serves as our mobile command post. So in an emergency, that has a built-in radio console in the back of the vehicle that we can use to communicate with our mutual aid partners, MedFlight. It's got the accountability boards. It carries equipment like our thermal imaging cameras, the gas meters, and due to the high demands that is placed on that vehicle, it has experienced significant wear and tear. The cost to replace that vehicle is $111,885. That encompasses the vehicle itself, the radio system, the lighting package, and the equipment such as the gas meter and thermal imaging cameras. And I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
What's the lead time?
That is a very good question. That's same vehicle as the police chief, I think about a year?
At least, yes.
At least a year.
Besides wear and tear, is there anything wrong with the vehicle? Has it had any mechanical problems, engine problems?
It has. It's had, we've done work on the engine. It's got some body rot. There is a high demand on the electrical system, so we've had that repaired because that powers the radio, the lights, the radios. The transmission's been worked on. The exhaust system's been worked on.
And none of the existing equipment can be used in the new vehicle?
The thermal imaging camera has aged out. They don't support that camera. So what we try to do in the department, have one for every truck, but certainly for the command vehicle because the officer responds to all emergencies. So it serves as a backup. Or in the case that he or she is the first one there, that will be the first one in use.
Any other questions for the chief? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
And to you.
Thank you.
So that was the final hearing from a department tonight, but just under the discussion area, I just wanted to mention, so this year, you remember last year we had a very extensive list, and there were several roof projects. This year, as everyone's had a chance to look, so the total, we have 22 projects totaling just over 6.55 million, and we anticipate that the funding target would be similar to last year, which was between 5.8 to 5.9 million. Last year's was just about 5.88 million. So just to give members a, sort of a feel for the scope of the plan, and we'll definitely have to make some tough decisions, but at least, we're not facing as daunting a target amount of projects that we were last year. And then we have, I wanted to ask, did everyone have a chance to review the minutes? I know I sent those out Wednesday morning. If not, if folks haven't read through them, we can also do them at the next meeting. Everyone pretty much, okay. All right, so it's probably best to take them individually, I think. Just because we meet seasonally, that's the reason that to explain to everyone, that's the reason that we're reviewing and approving minutes from 2023. So first one, I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes from November 16th, 2023.
I'm sorry, we have to do them separately, or?
I think it may be best just if people have any
Okay.
issues with them, but.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
so
I'd like to make
Joe-
a motion to accept the minutes from November 16th.
motion by Joe and then second by Dennis. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Any opposed? And then I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes from November 30th, 2023.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes for November 30th, 2023.
Motion by Joe, seconded by Dennis. All those in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
November 30th. All those opposed? All right, appears to be unanimous.
And I'd also like to make a motion to accept the minutes for December 7th, 2023.
Second.
Motion by Joe and seconded by Dennis. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from December 7th, 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. That brings us to our public comments section. Do we have anyone from the public that wishes to express comments to the committee, or? I'm not seeing anyone. So I just wanted to mention, our next meeting is a week from today, November 21st, same location, same time, 6 p.m. I did want to mention to everyone, the final meeting, due to a scheduling conflict, is going to be at the in the school committee meeting room, and that's December 5th. That will start 1 hour later than these meetings, so that will start at 7. So just didn't want folks to go to the wrong location or be mixed up. Does anyone in the committee have any questions you wanted to discuss?
I had one
Yep.
question about the Center for the Arts. I feel like that was the group, not for her, but are we able to accept the recommendation from her husband, the quote? Because aren't we supposed to make sure that they're a viable quote, or how?
I mean, we
can
could,
that-
what we can do,
use that?
we could ask Director Clancy
Okay.
if she can, I can reach out to her and ask her if, to review just to see if, for her opinion on the flooring cost. And if it was, if it did go forward and be procured, you'd have to follow all the,
Right.
all the municipal bidding and purchasing procedures, so. But that's a good question. I will ask
I
Director
also feel
Clancy.
bad, she said that she was trying to get a quote about the painting, and that seemed to be a guesstimate as well, so just want to make sure that.
Right.
Two
Oh,
things.
most
One is
definitely.
that they're accurate
Mhm.
quotes, and that we're also able to make a judgment regardless.
John, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can we do borrowing for like maintenance? Like, to me, that's like a maintenance, like painting and redoing a floor. I mean, will you have a problem with you borrowing on that?
I can look into it. I think in the past, they've been much larger projects. There may have been school projects that involve painting, but I'd have to look into that.
John, another point you had brought up, this is just my own observation, is, that this year, we're pretty close to what last year. But if you look out the year afterwards,
It's scary.
there's a huge amount. So are
Right.
we, I'm not sure we don't get influenced by it's going to be easy to do it this year, because we only have to, get to a couple of changes to get all the money, but then next year, so shouldn't we be looking at both years?
We do look at, I mean, the whole thing is we can, when you go through the summary, you can look at all 5 years. I think what we did last year is a large number of roof projects hit the plan. I think when Director Clancy reviewed it with a lot of the roofing experts that she deals with, as my recollection is, a large number, and they were multi-million-dollar projects, hit the capital plan all of a sudden. And what happened is, I think what we've been doing is working with her to try to sort out what could possibly be an MSBA project, what could be deferred, just trying to manage the projects so that they, obviously we can't fund them all in 1 year. But I think as we go through, working with her and others, is to try to prioritize them so we can fund them in bites and not, because I can tell you, we cannot borrow within non-excluded debt, and do like $7 million or $9 million of projects. That's just not feasible within the town's budget limitations for debt service. So I think it's always a balancing and a prioritizing,
Yeah, but
exercise.
my point is that there might be one item but if I look at what's next year and a different item, and I look at the two of them, and I say, which one's more important? I'm not, I just want you to know I'm going to look at both.
Yeah, no, you
Okay,
could,
because I think there's a risk here that we just approve everything that's in this proposal for this year, and then we're faced with this enormous,
But next year has a lot of roof replacements as well, I noticed. So if those are handled similar to how they were handled this past year, it might give us some relief next year.
right, I mean, what I can say is when we reach out and we distribute the capital budgeting materials, we ask department heads to give us their highest priority projects. So if I'm running a department, I'm going to submit to capital my highest need for the coming fiscal year. I can always redistribute, or I can either, I always tell department heads, you can always accelerate a project from the outer year. For example, if you have a truck that's just falling apart and it's not going to last 3-4 years like you thought, you can always accelerate it sooner for repair. Or the flip side of that, if something's going to last a little longer than what you thought and you may not have to replace it, you can defer or put it off a year or two. That's the kind of the flip side of that. But we're asking them to give us because the department heads are the ones at the operational level that, know what they need. Like, as finance director, and, I don't want to speak for Paul as town manager, but we don't, I guess what I'm saying is impose our will on departments and say, oh, put that off, we're not going to fund that. We rely on them for their expertise to bring the projects to us and say, this is my number one need for the coming fiscal year.
And I can validate from the school committee side, the school side, we probably had $6-9 million worth of projects. We said, okay, what's most important? And school safety and infrastructure, and those are the ones we put forward. Those other projects are still there, but we felt that these are the ones that we really need to get done, over the next year, so.
I was gonna bring up the same point, because I think what we were struggling with the last 2 years is just that, and I kept bringing it up. Please prioritize on your end to make our job easier, but so we know, because they know their business, like to John's point, they know what's more important to be replaced sooner.
Yeah, and I did ask Director Clancy, so I'm going to get the priority numbers for those projects as well, and I'll get those out to the committee. And I know I sent a memo from Dr. Lane to everyone, and I will, I'll distribute that at the next meeting when we talk about school facilities and town facilities. So that should help the committee this year. We'll get priority numbers from everyone.
last year, there was a small amount of carryover funds that helped us in the process. Are there any funds?
Yes, actually, Darlene's researching that right now, so hopefully we'll have that by, she has to contact all the department heads.
Facility projects, so Christine's looking at them and making sure that they're completed and that those funds can, you know, if there's any funds that can be recaptured, they're mostly all our projects. So I'll have a number for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
So if anybody has any other discussion or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.